Let me tell you something I've carried in my heart for many, many years. You see, not all dolls are meant for play. Some are meant to remember things that no child should ever know. And one such doll, oh, I can still see her face, even after all these years. It began in the fall of 1962. I was a young woman then, living in a quiet town where everyone knew each other's names, where children played in the streets until the sun dipped behind the trees. Life was simple, or at least it seemed so. One day, a family moved into the house across from where I lived. They were the Harpers, a kind, hopeful couple with one little girl named Clara. Sweet Clara, with her golden hair and bright blue eyes, the kind of child who carried sunshine in her smile. But sunshine can fade, my dear. And when the Harpers walked into town, they brought with them something that carried a shadow. It was a doll. I remember the first time I saw it. Clara held it close to her chest, her arms wrapped around it as though it were a baby. At first, I thought it was just a pretty thing, handmade, porcelain, with rosy cheeks and delicate curls of painted hair. But then I looked into its eyes. The eyes weren't like any dolls I had ever seen before. They weren't glassy and blank. No, they were sharp, too sharp. They glistened like a watchful animal, like they could follow you even when you weren't moving. That night, as I sat by my window, I watched Clara in her room across the street. She was talking to the doll, laughing with it, nodding as though the doll were answering her back. I told myself, it's just a child's game, just imagination. But then I began to hear things. At first, it was faint. A whisper carried across the still night air, like Clara was whispering secrets. But when I leaned closer to the glass, I realized Clara wasn't the one whispering. The doll's mouth was moving. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, told myself it couldn't be true. Dolls don't whisper, they don't move. But every night after that, I saw the same thing. The doll would sit on Clara's bed, its lips parting ever so slightly, words curling out like smoke. And Clara, oh, poor Clara, she listened, she believed. Now, you might think, Grandma, why didn't you tell someone? But in those days, people didn't take kindly to tales of dolls that talked. They'd call you foolish, superstitious. So I kept my silence. But the doll didn't keep silent. One evening I was walking past the Harper house when I heard Clara's giggles through the open window. And then I heard another voice, low, hushed, not a child's voice at all. The doll was saying something, and I remember every single word. Don't go near the river tomorrow. Something bad will happen there. The next day, Clara's father came running through town, his face pale, shouting for help. A young boy from the neighborhood had gone missing near the river. They found him hours later, drowned. Clara was safe, yes. But how did the doll know? I told myself it was coincidence. But child, coincidences don't happen again and again. And with that doll, they did. Weeks passed, and Clara carried the doll everywhere, through the market, into church, even when she slept. And every time, its eyes seemed to stare right through me. I tried to avoid them, but sometimes, when I caught a glimpse, I could swear the doll remembered me, as if it knew I was watching. Then came the night that changed everything. It was cold, the wind sharp with the scent of rain. I couldn't sleep, so I sat by the window with a blanket wrapped tight around my shoulders. Across the street, Clara's room was lit by a faint glow. She was sitting up in bed, the doll on her lap. At first, I thought she was talking to it again, but then she froze. Her tiny shoulders stiffened, her eyes wide. She shook her head violently, whispering, "No, no, I won't." And then, I swear on everything I hold dear, the doll lifted its head on its own. Its porcelain neck cracked as it turned to face her. Its lips moved again. Though I couldn't hear the words, Clara's face told me enough. Whatever it was asking of her, it terrified her. She dropped the doll on the floor and tried to run. But child, the doll didn't stay on the floor. It stood. On its own little porcelain legs, it stood. Clara screamed. Her mother came rushing in, and just like that, the doll was lying still again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. The next morning, I went to visit Mrs. Harper. I tried to warn her, told her the doll wasn't safe, but she laughed it off. Said, "It's just a doll, nothing more." But Clara wasn't laughing. She looked pale, tired, like the life was being drained out of her. And when I met her eyes, she whispered something so soft, I almost didn't catch it. She said, "It remembers me. Every night, it remembers. Oh, child, I didn't know what she meant then. Not fully, but I would learn soon enough. And the truth was darker than anything I could have imagined. Because that doll, that cursed thing, didn't just whisper about what had happened, it whispered about what was coming, and sometimes it made sure it came true. Ah, child, I can see the fear in your eyes. Don't be afraid. I survived this story, didn't I? But it wasn't easy, not easy at all. After Clara whispered those words to me that the doll remembered her, I couldn't rest. What did it mean, remembers? How could a thing of porcelain and cloth hold memories? Yet every time I closed my eyes, I saw those sharp, glassy eyes staring back at me, not lifeless like other toys, but alive, aware. The Harpers, bless their hearts, wanted to believe everything was fine. They told themselves Clara was just tired, just having bad dreams, but I knew better. And then, one night, I was woken by a sound I will never forget. A scream, a child's scream, so raw it split the silence, like lightning splits the sky. I ran to the window, and across the street, Clara's room blazed with light. I could see shadows moving frantically against the curtains. I rushed over without thinking, my nightgown whipping in the wind. When Mrs. Harper opened the door, she was trembling, her eyes wild. "It's Clara! She won't stop screaming!" she cried. I ran up the stairs and into the little girl's room. And there she was, huddled in the corner, clutching her arms around herself, her face pale as snow. And in the middle of the room, sitting upright as though placed there deliberately, was the doll. But no one had touched it. Clara kept pointing, sobbing, "It won't forget me. It won't forget what I said." I bent down, picked up the doll with shaking hands, and I swear to you, its porcelain was warm, not like a toy, not like lifeless clay, warm, like skin. I nearly dropped it, but Mrs. Harper snatched it from me, clutching it protectively. "It's just a doll," she insisted, though her voice shook. "She's imagining things." But child, I saw it. For just a moment, when I looked into its eyes, I saw something move behind them, like a shadow pressing against glass. From that night on, things grew worse. Clara stopped playing outside. She grew quiet, restless, always glancing over her shoulder as though something followed her. And the doll? Oh, the doll was always there. At the dinner table, in her lap during church, propped up on her pillow at night, always watching. Then came the whispers. Neighbors began talking about strange things happening near the Harpers' home, chickens found dead in their coops, doors swinging open on their own, candles snuffed out without a breeze. And always the whispers ended with the same words, "That doll, it's cursed." One afternoon, as I fetched water from the well, Clara came to me. She looked so small, so broken, her little hands trembling as she held the doll to her chest. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "it knows things I don't know. It tells me about people, things I shouldn't know." I asked her what she meant, and she leaned close, her breath shaking against my ear. "It told me Mr. Dalton would fall from his horse, and the next day, he did. It told me Mrs. Lang's baby wouldn't live, and it didn't." Her eyes filled with tears. "It remembers everything, Grandma. Things that happened before I was born, things I never told anyone. It remembers, and it won't stop talking." Oh, child, my blood ran cold. This wasn't a toy anymore. It was something else, something that fed on memory, on tragedy. I told Clara she must get rid of it, but she shook her head violently. "I can't. If I do, it will be angry. It told me so. It said it will never forget me." And then something terrible happened. One stormy night, I woke again to the sound of shouting. Mr. Harper was yelling, his voice booming through the rain. I rushed outside, my lantern flickering in the wind. When I reached their door, it was wide open, and inside, chaos. The house looked as if a storm had torn through it. Chairs overturned, dishes shattered, curtains ripped from the walls. And in the center of the chaos was Clara, standing still as stone. The doll was in her arms. Her parents begged her to put it down, but she just stared ahead, her lips moving, whispering words too soft to hear. And then, with my own eyes, I saw it. The doll's mouth moving too, matching her whispers perfectly, like an echo. I stepped forward, shouting her name, but as I did, the doll's head turned, slowly, painfully, like the cracking of old wood. And those eyes locked on me. For the first time, I felt it deep in my chest, like icy hands clutching my heart. The doll knew me. It remembered me. I staggered back, nearly dropping the lantern. The flames sputtered and flared, casting long shadows across the walls, and in that flicker, I saw something. Something inside the doll's eyes. Not glass, not paint. A face, a human face pressed against the inside, screaming silently. I realized then, child, the doll didn't just remember, it kept. It held memories. Yes, but not just memories. It held people, souls, trapped within its porcelain shell. I don't know how I found the strength, but I lunged forward and grabbed Clara, tearing the doll from her hands. She screamed, clawing at me, begging me not to take it, her tiny fingernails digging into my arms. But I ran. I ran out into the storm, into the woods beyond the town. The doll was heavier than it should have been, its weight pulling at me like an anchor. And all the while, it whispered, "Yes, child," it whispered, right against my ear. "I remember you. I remember what you fear. I will never forget you." I wanted to throw it, smash it, bury it deep in the earth. But it laughed, laughed, child, like a living thing. At last I reached the river. The black, raging water churned beneath the storm. Without thinking, I hurled the doll into the current. It sank quickly, vanishing beneath the waves. For a moment, I thought it was over. But just as the water swallowed it, I heard its voice one last time, rising above the storm. "I will remember. I will always remember." And then it was gone. When I returned, Clara was sobbing, broken, her parents clutching her tightly. In time, she grew better. She laughed again, played again, as though the shadow had lifted. But me, child, I was never the same, because sometimes late at night when the wind is still, I hear it again, a whisper in the dark, a voice curling against my ear, soft as silk. "I remember you," and I wonder, did the river take it away forever? Or is it still out there waiting for another child, another family, another story to remember?